You're with Julian on the Brown Note, and a Gone But Forgotten review. My infrequent series, which I haven't done one for a while, which features an album that was either denied classic status on release or has been forgotten from the conversation ever since, and a real outlier this time. In the realm of Krautrock, which is a genre I have enormous fanboy affection for, I wish Julian Cope would get off his high horse and re-release Krautrock Sampler, as it's such a great inroad to discovering Krautrock. For some reason he thinks that it's a not perfect summation of Krautrock. Who cares? I found more good music through that one book than anything else. Krautrock itself emerging at the end of the 1960s as this incredibly diverse form of music coming out of rock music mainly, but then electronic music coming out of Germany, across many immortal acts like Can and Faust and Ashra Temple, who are the ones mainly on display today. A group of the finest musicians to have played rock music in European history, mainland European history, converged in the Swiss Alps in orgiastic jam sessions, and they released 3 albums as the Cosmic Jokers around the sort of like the 1971-72. The only problem was that they didn't know that they were in the band Cosmic Jokers. They were just doing jam sessions, and this guy came along and basically stole all the music and released it as albums. And the immortal guitarist Manuel Göttsching from the band Ashra Temple walked into a Berlin record store and saw himself on the back of an album in a band called the Cosmic Jokers that he didn't know he was in. And the person that did this, who is a hero, I forget his name, fled the country, fled Germany. But thank God he did, because we got at least 2 classic albums out of the Cosmic Jokers. And music analogous to that was also released as well, particularly the Timothy Leary album 7 Up. And if you think that story about being in the Swiss Alps in these drug-fueled orgiastic jam sessions was mental enough, and having their music released without anyone knowing that was playing it, consider Timothy Leary being broken out of jail by the Black Panthers blowing a hole in the wall. Timothy Leary, being the LSD guru in America, was taken out of jail in America by them, I think, breaking through a wall in a jail cell and then spiriting him to North Africa, where he then escaped their clutches because he thought they were kidnapping him, and ended up in the Swiss Alps and making music with the Cosmic Jokers and the album 7 Up. The other analogous album was Walter Wegmüller's Tarot, which is a vastly superior sonic document, a double album, which was initially made with a deck of tarot cards. Now, that is something that is going to set you back a fair penny on Discogs, and if you want to buy me a Christmas present, please do. Walter Wegmüller, he was born in Bern, the son of Romany travellers, and grew up in homes and farms with foster parents. He travelled around Europe and India, making paintings and jewellery, settling in Basel in 1957, and became an expert tarot card reader. Working as a visual artist, Wegmüller designed a set of 22 tarot cards. His friend Timothy Leary introduced him to Rolf Ulrich Kaiser of Ohr Records in Germany, and it was agreed that Wegmüller record an album on the theme of tarot, using a lot of these Cosmic Joker musicians, but particularly Ashra Temple. Their debut album and their early releases are some of the best psychedelic cosmic rock in history, one of the pivotal bands of Krautrock, but also because they've got 2 founding members who are 2 of the most prominent mainland European musicians of all time. Klaus Schulze, who is one of the most important makers of synthesizer music in history, and regarded as a legend, and Manuel Göttsching, who started as the guitarist. He would go on to pretty much found the genre New Age, with Ashra Temple becoming just him and being just Ashra. the incredible albums he did from the mid to late 70s basically fomented the entire genre of New Age. And he also released EC2, what was the album? I'll just get the title correct. E2, E4, which I think is a chess move, which was an hour-long piece of music and released in 1980. Actually, I think it's released in 1984, but made in 1980, which predicted trance, house, Balearic house, techno, still one of the most influential pieces of electronic music ever made. These two guys were geniuses, and they ended up making an album alongside some of the greatest talents in German music, with Walter Wegmüller, who serves as a voice hanging over these 22 tracks. This is astonishing as a double album. It sounds like it's off-putting and weird, but just listen to the opening track, Der Narr. It's got this incredibly funky wah-wah groove with drums and guitar. There's two excellent guitarists, including Göttsching, and this album contains some of the best Jimi Hendrix wah-wah freak-out guitars across some of the funkiest beats you'll ever hear. And just listen to that opening track, it's incredibly appealing. There's this carnival barker introducing each musician and then dissolving into a coughing fit. It's fantastic. De Magia, the second track, is really cosmic, space rock, spiritualized, psyche. We get into drone music with the third track, Der Hopperstein, with Klaus Schulze on the keyboards. And he really was a legend. He's done about 50 albums. I don't know if he's passed away or not. Did I say Klaus? Klaus Schulze. The Stone Roses are predicted with Der Herrscherin, track 4, which is another fantastic track. It's all that one's very sort of ambient, and it builds to sort of like feels like the opening to 10-Story Love Song by the Stone Roses, with the dual guitars sort of noodling over the top. That promise of that funky blues psychedelic wah-wah is reappeared with Der Herrscher, one of the best tracks on the album. Fantastic groove, which has got the Walter Wegmüller's discombobulated voice and some wild soloing. And the soloing isn't just Hendrix-like, it's almost as well at times like Mike Bloomfield from the Paul Butterfield Blues Band and the album Highway 61 Revisited. One of the other core elements of this album, Der Hohe Priester, each one is named after a card in the deck, is track 6, which is Angie by the Rolling Stones. There's these folk songs which are sort of psych-folk and really beautiful, with some great piano playing and flutes going on in the background. And it sounds a bit like Song for Guy, the Elton John song as well. There's this odyssey between track 7 and 8, which are very trippy, and it sort of comes down into Der Weiss on track 9 as this medieval sort of procession. You can imagine it's like people being whipped as they're just sort of stomping along. There's another version of that Angie track from the Stones with Das Glockenkarosad. I can't say any of these words, which is track 10, and it's got some great bass tones that just carry across the whole soundstage as well. Das Die Kraft has some sort of proto drum machines and whirring synths and avant noises, and track 12, Die Kraft, is, I think that's the last one on side 1, as so like really some pulsing rhythms and bass and multi-layered guitar soloing going over the top. We get into sort of samba at the opening of side 2 with the Prüfung, which reminds me a bit of Can and Future Days, the opening track on that Future Days album, the title track. Side 2 gets a little bit weirder and wilder. I'm not going through every track. Track 15, Die Massigkeit, is a full-blown psychedelic track, analogous to the stuff on side 2 of Tago Mago by Can, where all song structure's gone and it's in this really out there psychedelic space, like some of the post Piper at the Gates of Dawn Pink Floyd stuff, which wasn't around song structures at all. It was really, really weird. There's another welcome at this stage return with the Teufel at 16 and at 17 with Die Zerstörung, which is back to that sort of psych-folk post Angie, even though it's probably recorded before the Rolling Stones recorded Angie. And it's a piano ballad as well that sounds a little bit analogous to Chariots of Fire, the theme tune to that as well. And then it goes through this noise. It sounds like someone's come in the studio and just like pushed over everything, and then the music comes back a little more electrified. It's a really satisfying track. The Zerstörung. I'm losing track of which is what. The track 18, it sounds like the kind of music you get over a moody indie drama or something like The Last of Us or something like that. And we also get into sort of like post-rock, very sort of got like the early Godspeed You Black Emperor use of guitars and mood and tone. And the final track, which I think is Die Welt, but so they've merged them all together on this track listing, but Die Welt is the final track and the longest one, which goes on for over 8 minutes. It is one of the most satisfying Hendrix guitar workouts with an incredibly funky beat that you will hear that isn't played by Jimi Hendrix. It's magnificent and the centerpiece, I think, to the album, even though it's the final track. And it goes on with this incredible building crescendos of guitars before these amazing warm bar of synths sort of swallow the album whole. There's so much on this album that is incredible. It's the folk, the psych-folk, the rock, the funk, the drone, like predicting drone music, predicting post-rock music, space rock. I think that this album belongs alongside the likes of Sign of the Times and the White Album and London Calling and Exile on Main Street as one of the best uses of the double album format there is. The only reason it doesn't get a perfect score is an album like Tago Mago exists, which is actually better, but not by much. So Walter Wegmüller Tarot is a fascinating, brilliant album of using some of the best musicians to have come out of mainland Europe. A pivotal album in Krautrock that doesn't get mentioned alongside the discography of people like New or Can or Faust. But is every bit as good as virtually any of their records. So Walter Wegmüller's Tarot, I'm going to give a 9.5 out of 10, a masterpiece.